Good morning. Good morning. Who's in charge here? Is it me? Marvellous. Okay. I'll introduce myself briefly, the first few slides of the presentation. I'm conscious there's some field trip that's planned today. I'm hearing Titanic music. How that's related to your activity and what you're expecting to hear from me, in terms of going down badly. But just remind me, what stage of the MBA process are you all at right now? Halfway through. So all the illusions have been blown away. Yeah. All those existential crises about why did I do this and why did I pay for this? Those people you looked at the beginning of the course that seem really nice, you're now looking at them and going, oh, they're not in my group. It's, does some of that resonate? Yeah. No, it's a fascinating program, and I'll talk a little bit about the MBA. A bit about how you can work with organizations such as mine as you start your career as executives. But most importantly, I'm going to talk about CEO for a Day, which is a global initiative that we've been running for 5 years in South Africa and about 14 years internationally. I actually do a lot of work in the MBA space. I'm doing a bit of research at the moment just around how it does transform an individual's career. And having been on the journey myself, I can honestly tell you it does transform your career for the better. Now, I can't say that at every business school because sadly, education is an extension of your own personal brand. And as you know, you choose a school for a reason. Great lecturers, convenience, but equally, what's my employability? And there are many programs that don't offer that type of employability transformation. They might offer the learning, the reflexive transformation, but actually, you want to get a bang for your buck in terms of investment on your education as well. Just very quickly then, South Africans in the room? Woo, there we go. Yeah. Any English people? Oh my God, I'm on my own. Who's not from South Africa?
I'm both.
You're both?
I'm African American.
African American. Why not? Why not? Are you really? Cool. Hey, diversity is a beautiful thing. So all the non-South Africans, just please shout out where you're from. Going around the room. Brazil, cool. Namibia.
I'll be some bias. Zimbabwe.
Okay, cool. Okay. Well, I'd like to make this as interactive as possible. Feel free to fire questions at me. How are we for time? Should take about 4 hours, and then we'll be done. Okay. So very briefly, by means of introduction, this is the firm I work for, Rogers Berntson. I cover the sub-Saharan region. I should introduce my colleague Renette, who's here with me today, who will be a point of contact going forward should some of you be successful in this program. My insights are based on conversations with leaders, advising leaders around the globe. Just wondering if I've got my own slide in there. We cover the sub-Saharan region, and they're areas that we're currently working in the executive space. And what we do is executive search, talent mapping, leadership assessments, succession planning, and working with boards. What does that mean? Clients pay me to find the leaders for their businesses. They pay us to pipeline and track the type of talent they think they're going to need in their businesses. We do the leadership assessments, the psychometrics, the technical, to ensure that appointments are considered safe, as well as all the due diligence to make sure people have the qualifications they say they have. They're not wanted by Interpol in Brazil or any other country. We do that background checks, but equally, we're looking for kind of surety that the person can perform. And there's a whole portfolio of assessments, be they business simulations or psychometrics you can use. And the board practice is something whereby it's very topical, and particularly in this region, how do you stop a Steinoff happening? Do you have the right governance structures in place? Do you comply with King 4? How relevant is that to your markets? What skills do we need on the board? And that's something that's in increasing demand. So essentially what we do, and anyone know who Edwin G. Booz is? There you go. You know what? I've done this presentation around the world. You're the first person to get that right so quickly. Very good. Good indication. So essentially something I believe in wholeheartedly. The best solution to a management problem is finding the right person. And when you get it right, great things can happen. And when you get it wrong, we can look at lost opportunity, we can talk about sub-optimization, but essentially getting the right leader is essential. Be that getting the right person, I believe the right individual on your reception and your security gate in your boardroom If you get the right person into that post, your organization can thrive. And again, let's look for my African-American friend over here. Look, when you get it right, great things can happen, and when you get it wrong, danger really does ensue. And from a kind of macroeconomic perspective, that's important, but even on a more tactical business perspective, you get the wrong people in the wrong role, and it is basically toxic. Just by means of introduction of who I am, and this is by no means me putting you out there, putting my CV out there because I'm looking for a job or trying to show off. I basically present myself as a student of leadership. Through my career journey of the last 21 years, I've trained at Sandhurst, I've been an army officer in the British Army, I was a captain in the counter-terrorist units, I worked in British diplomacy, I've worked in consulting, and I've lectured around the world, and I've constantly been on a lifelong learning journey. So it doesn't mean I'm an expert, because my colleague here will tell you how bad I am to work with, but essentially what that means is I'm always trying to learn about leadership. So exercising it in the business I run, but equally advising my clients and my candidates about how they can optimize their leadership journey. And I think something around the changing landscape of the world is our learning journey doesn't stop. In years gone by, let's take a South African context, BCom, CA, you're set for life. Right now, that's just like the entry-level requirements to enter the workspace. We've constantly got to be learning, and as soon as I finish something else, I'm planning what the next kind of step is. And this is important from actually garnering knowledge from around the world, but equally, again, it's about your own personal brand. We've chosen Stellenbosch Business School for a reason. We've looked at the rankings, we've looked at employability, we've looked at affordability, we've looked at where it is, but actually, we're doing a big reason is to extend our personal brand so that we are attractive to employers and can fulfill our objectives. So again, the whole concept of leadership, I'm going to labor this point about the right person and the right leadership skills, just so we can see. This is really interesting. I'm from Manchester, England. I'll call myself an African-British person. I'm actually quarter Nigerian. I look a bit more African than you do, though, I'll be honest with you. I'm from Manchester, it's my hometown. I'm a big Manchester United fan. You can look at Sir Alex Ferguson, the most successful manager in history, with exactly the same resources and an almost identical context. You change that leadership structure, and you go from world-beating champions to shareholder success to a marginally profitable organization that is an also-ran. Again, it just kind of shows the X factor the leader brings, the core skills that we learn here, but what else is the leader brings to contribute to that culture and that success? On a more local context, I'm a big rugby fan, and I'm actually, since the appointment of Captain Khaleesi, as I like to call him, I'm really struggling about who I want to win in the next 2 weeks. I'm a proud English rugby fan, but there's something about wanting to see Khaleesi and the Springboks really thrive, because I think it just plays into the kind of the South African narrative. When the Springboks are doing well and they're diverse, the country feels a bit better about itself, and I think that's great. Eddie Jones, any Stormers fans here? So he was due to start to be your coach, and he decided to come to England, but you can forgive him because he helped South Africa win the World Cup in 2007. England got kicked out of the World Cup, Home World Cup 2014, bring in a new manager, second in the world, back-to-back Six Nations championships, a change of leadership. The wheels are slightly coming off now. It's interesting. I believe in talking about sustainable leadership, sustainable capitalism. I think he's broken the team. We came second from bottom of the Six Nations. We're probably going to lose to the Springboks, which I can live with. But actually, it looks like from a cultural perspective, it has become too intense. Only yesterday, 2 more people were sent home injured from training. So again, this challenge of leadership is fascinating. A local example, Stellenbosch's own Thuli Madonsela. For the last 3-4 years, when I was talking about reasons to be optimistic about being in South Africa, I talk about Thuli. And I think it's really important we can all see the right leader in the right place with the right background, skills, ethics, and values basically deliver success or failure. So the world of executive recruitment. And some of my kind of data is slightly old. This is a lecture I used to give in Oxford and Cambridge in the UK to help people understand how to navigate the world of what we do. Essentially, the world of recruitment is huge. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry globally. And it is an industry that is growing. It's an industry that's being disrupted through technology, AI. I spend a lot of time with Unilever. They have AI conducting EQ interviews for their graduate entrants. AIEQ, you know what I mean? How many acronyms? But essentially, the world of recruitment is changing, but organizations will sink or swim based on their ability to attract and retain the right talent. Just to give you an indication of what it really means is the contingent recruitment, which we call the C word in our industry, that's basically 2 arms, 2 legs, fire a CV off at people, get the person through the door, bums on seats, no win, no fee. We operate at this spectrum, the search, which is retained. I get paid by my clients to map the talent landscape, to advise them on the type of skills and people they need in their organization. And in the middle here, you've kind of got entry-level blue-collar work, executive 3 million rand plus salaries, and you guys, well, if you're hoping to earn 3 million on leaving Stellenbosch, you're going to be disappointed. So you guys are probably in here. I think the average MBA graduate salary is around 850,000 rand at the moment. Anyone want to challenge me on that? Is that what your expectations are? Yeah.
Actually, around about 540,000 now.
In the Cape.
Is the average
Yeah.
salary.
Yeah. Which is, you know, I'd say it's disappointing. Some of the programs that the work we do we don't do much for MBA grads, but it's really the 750 to 1.4, 1.5. And that's people coming from the better business schools such as this, and probably with good track records beforehand as well. But essentially, this level of recruitment, you'll get hundreds of recruiters phoning you, you'll give your CV to recruiters, and they'll try and make something happen. Here, we find you. You know, you don't call us, we call you. And you guys want to be here in the next 3 to 5 years. That's when you're going to be kind of penetrating the excos of SMEs and a bit later on in multinationals. And the MBA space, you kind of come out around here. Let's say crudely circa 1 million rand. So you're going to be attractive to some headhunters, but realistically, the top jobs, people aren't yet going to come and find you. And how this works is, obviously, we know who all the listed CEOs are and their CFOs and their successors, but the real skill is talking to them and knowing them intimately to talk about who is the rising talent coming up in their organizations. And programs such as CEO for a Day are really designed for us to have an eye on the rising future leaders of the markets we operate in. Some of the clients we work with locally, just to give you an insight, and some of these have been involved historically in CEO for a Day. In terms of headhunting in South Africa, I would say we're in the top 3 firms, one of 4 global multinational firms that deliver. Then there's lots of mom and pop shops, people that have an office in the southern suburbs in their bedroom that can execute perfectly reasonably, but it's understanding how to work with them. I think it's going to give you an overview of what an executive search process looks like, so you will have an idea how to navigate it. And the CEO for a Day program, which I will come on to, will replicate this to some extent, really with some key differences. But essentially, this is how long a search works, takes invariably. And I'll just talk through what happens. So the candidate brief, it's not somebody sending us a job description. It's an interaction with, let's say we're appointing a CEO. I've actually just been involved in appointing the CEO for USB Ed here. So can use that as a case in point. You speak to all the shareholders. The chairman's based in the UK. He's chairman of Equus as well. You speak to the shareholders, Stellenbosch, Stan du Plessis, the COO, Wim de Villiers, the Vice Chancellor. You speak to external shareholders, the CEO, CFO of Wiphold, Desmond Smith, ex-chairman of Sanlam, all the people on the board, to say, is there kind of a cogent view of what the board wants in terms of their leader? Actually, very aligned. Stellenbosch is always a delight to work with, very aligned organization. Then you listen to them and say, what is the vision you want this CEO to execute? And then you kind of temper that with reality. Okay, it's achievable. Let's go to the market. Let's look at some kind of concept profiles that we believe can deliver this. Do a detailed global mapping exercise where we target organizations where the skills might sit. So let's look at comparable international organizations, and we'll use the executive education space as a kind of a context. Where are the best exec education programs in the world? Shout out. Yep. Yep. Oxford, INSEAD, Cambridge, absolutely. South Africa, our key competitors to USB would be. Ooh, I'm going to UCT this afternoon. Yeah, UCT, Gibbs, probably that's it. Wits, way back when, it's struggling. Henley, good business school. Yeah, I sat on the board of Henley for 4 years. Their MBAs we used to involve in this program, but they didn't do very well, interestingly. Stellenbosch and UCT and Gibbs always perform better, but Henley globally, very, very good for exec education. So then we've got like a kind of, I call it intelligence preparation of the talent landscape. So we know where we're going to look. We can look at what people are doing there with a research team, but equally informal conversations, talking with sources to find out who are the movers and shakers in this space we should know. We bring that research back, prove it with the client, then we start headhunting and bringing people in. Now it's really interesting. The more senior a candidate is to deal with, the more pleasant they are and polite when they speak to a junior researcher that might be 1 year out of university, who's phoning up to assess assess motivation, assess fit before they come and have an interview with me. People that are recent MBAs are often the rudest people to deal with. And it's a real shortcut in terms of how to get ahead in life. Be nice to the gatekeepers. If a researcher or a receptionist or a business support phoned you to say, we've identified you with this role, don't be all arrogant, you know. Be polite, even if you're not interested. That person may come back in 18 months, 2 years and say, I've got another opportunity. That's the chief exec of Manchester United. Are you interested? And if you were rude to them, they're going to lose your details. So it staggers me. And I had it in my own office yesterday. I've got senior colleagues that do a lot of work, and I've got recently promoted consultants. And my research team hate working with the recently promoted consultants, #MBAs, because there's arrogance there. And I've been there. So if we can kind of lose that, embrace that humility, that humanity, be nice to gatekeepers, be it in a search firm, be it when you're going to interview an organization, be it in a bloody restaurant when you're trying to book a table. South Africa's a small world. It'll get back that you've got a bit of an attitude. So just a bit of a tip there. And from that initial engagement with probably a junior researcher, they're qualifying you to say, can you come in and have time with one of our consultants? Now, when you leave this place and you graduate, you are going to be marketable. You might not believe it, but you will be. And there's going to be a lot of mediocre recruiters phoning you up, telling you you're really good. Can I send your CV out to people? And what they'll probably do is send your CV to 100 people, hoping that 2 or 3 of them want to interview you. And all that really does is dilute your brand. Now, I'm a search firm, and there are other excellent search firms in South Africa, maybe 4 or 5. And what you want yours to be represented by an organisation that's got a specific opportunity for you, but equally by somebody that's really hard to have a conversation with. You want to be talking to a consultant that is too busy to come and talk to you because their clients are paying them so much money to deliver on assignments. So often I get emails after these lectures, and I get emails from people saying, I've chosen you to represent me. Can I have a meeting? I'm available tomorrow. Well, how am I going to make any money out of that? And, you know, who are you to choose me? The best search firms are being paid by the clients to do specific mandates. And there's a really good way to find out if the search firm is worth engaging with. What's the greatest asset in any business? So, search firm phones you up, go on the website and look at the people that are doing it. If the people there have 20 years experience, have 3 postgraduates, have worked around the world, they might be the right kind of people that can advise you. If there's nothing about the people on the website, it's because they've got a bunch of people in a call center or a bunch of bots chancing their arm to try and make money on the back of your hard work. And I've got nothing against those business models. I'm just saying, be wary. So, search firms, it's very hard at this stage, even if you're an executive already, to get an interview with a consultant. Please, yeah.
You also approach it from the other, the other angle. So you have an opportunity and then you go and search for talent. Do you do it from the other side where you try and develop talent? Or you identify something that's not there, so there is a bit of coaching or, you know, gain a bit of experience in this, then you'll be good. So it's like career path.
It's a good question, but in short, yes, but it's a minority of what we do, and we do it for our clients that have retained us on lots of searches. So the CEO1Day program is a way of actually proactively helping MBAs navigate the career ladder. It's a global, should we say, goodwill exercise where we help our clients understand this next generation of leaders coming through, and we help you understand what it is to be a CEO and go through a process. The development work I do a lot of, but that's really for specifically retained clients. What I will say is increasingly clients are saying to us, big data, we don't get it. What's the talent landscape? Who's out there? Can we look at them? Then we look at them, they say, oh my God, these guys have got no business or EQ skills. Can we put a program to develop that? But that's the minority of our business, but I think the model is shifting that way. I think in your kind of executive career timelines coming out of here, you want to be hitting 2-3 million in 3 to 5 years, I imagine. Sorry to be crude and talk about money, but that's going to be a motivator. So actually, that won't impact necessarily in terms of your career journeys, but it will be for the organizations that you run. So essentially, we map it, we target advertising less and less, and then someone will reach out to you to get you in for an interview. Initial interviews are done by us. We make our recommendations to the board do their interviews, background checks, assessments, contracts signed. It's never that easy. Contracts and remuneration is so complicated now. We spend a lot of our time doing remuneration modeling because of shares, vesting dates, VE trust shares, buy-in, buy-out clauses. You know, there's kind of 23 rows of variables on each offer that we deal with. So it's never that straightforward, but we can ensure that you get the best offer and the client gets good value for money as well. But that's just to give you an overview. And CEO for a Day will replicate this apart from offering you money at the end of it. And we're not headhunting you at the beginning, we're asking you to apply. Any questions? A few tips about working with search firms. Search firms don't make their money by talking to you, they make their money by delivering solutions to their clients. And you could be that solution. And if we are putting you in a process and we're interviewing you and feeding back to you, that's our level of engagement. So even if you're not going to get the job and 95% of people we interview are going to be regretted, still try to make that a constructive experience. But it's very hard to make it constructive unless we meet. So, you know, if you say, I've heard there's a great opportunity, am I right? And I say no, don't be upset. You know, if it's a great opportunity and I agree with you and we interview and you meet the clients and they then say no because of all these reasons, then we got a relationship, a meaningful relationship. And we can give you that developmental feedback to move back to the next stage. But the good consultants don't have enough time to coach everybody that's interested. They have enough time to coach the people that we agree there's an interest, and actually this one wasn't right for you, but the next one might be. Control where your CV goes. You're going to have a good brand after this. You probably have already, that's why you got in here. Don't let recruiters just send your CV anywhere without you knowing about it. What sometimes happens is doing strategy roles at Pick and Pay, actually some of those are recent MBA graduates, and we're searching, and they say, oh God, I got this CV 6 months ago from this outfit I've never heard of.
But
Yeah.
how long it takes for you to recognize a facial?
How long does it take for me?
Yeah.
90 seconds. No, I'm judging you right now. No.
I'm okay?
Yeah, I think you're quite good. Be good in the Lusophone markets. No, in terms of, from a search perspective, in terms of the process. So it can take 2 weeks, it can take 18 months. And we just did a listed CEO search, and it took us 18 months from start to finish. Halfway through that search, there was a kind of change of ownership, and that can complicate things. New owners come in with the seat on the board, and they have a differential view of what the leader should be. External shareholders coming from overseas don't understand the PE landscape, want to bring in a German or a Brit, and actually that's not what the business needs right now. So there's all these kind of areas that are kind of going on, all these variables that we're the broker of. And at the one hand, you've got an organization that needs a leader, and you've got somebody that's putting their life on hold saying, shall I relocate my family to Cape Town or not? Where are my kids going to go to university or school? So there's a lot of kind of emotion involved as well.
But what kind of environment do you want to candidate? I mean, only inside the office or outside the office?
So from our assessments.
Yeah.
So what we'll do is we'll do a 90-minute interview and then probably do a business simulation in terms of assessments backed up with psychometrics and quantitative assessments. But really, it's about a lot of the recommendations from people you've worked with. So there's formal referencing, which doesn't mean anything, it just means you're not wanted by Interpol. And then there's informal referencing, where we'll talk to people that work for you, worked alongside you, and you work for, that's entirely off the record. And that's where a lot of the decisions get made. Because a lot of the bad stuff you can't publicly share. You've got a compromise agreement, and let's not explore why that might be. Basically, that shouldn't be public information. So actually, formal references don't really matter, unless you've gone to prison, and then obviously that's another issue, which I'll come on to. So know where your CV's going. Work with recruitment companies, but be aware of how they operate, how they get paid. An organization where they're not proud of their consultants perhaps don't have a CV as good as yours, can they really advise you? Just be aware of that. Integrity and discretion. A lot of people don't like it when I tell them they're not right for something, but I believe in integrity and discretion, because 18 months down the line, you might respect the fact that I had an opinion that you still differ with, but at least you know you're going to get the truth. And integrity, talk about the prison example. Don't lie on your CV. It will come up. Don't bullshit. It's going to be found out. One guy, we specifically asked certain questions. I mean, what were you doing between this period of time? There's a 10-year gap. I was traveling. Hell of a journey there. Where did you go? South America. Kept pushing and pushing and pushing. You go, okay, I was in prison. As if that's not going to come up down the line. Now, if you've been in prison for 10 years, it's unlikely we're going to get you an executive role. However, if you've shared it, no one has a perfect trajectory in life. Just share that so the information's out there. Jumping ahead, Google online exposure. Who Googles themselves regularly? You narcissist. No, I'm joking. You really should. You really should, because that's the first thing that organizations are going to do. The secretary's going to book you in, and there's horrible examples of the wheels falling off. I'll give you two real examples. Somebody that had for a shortlist, quick Google search, he'd been arrested for beating up his stepdaughter. That was in the press, that was in the news. I can't need to hear about this. You raise it with the individual, yeah, but she's a nightmare. He was justifying what he'd done. Another one, and horrible one, and I'm not trying to be funny at all. There was a gentleman, very senior, someone with the exact same name was a renowned paedophile that was on the official sex offenders register. He didn't know. So actually, he could have been mistaken for this individual. It's a horrible thing to have out there and have an association with, but at least you can manage the expectations up front. Equally, several offers in our organization have been rescinded to candidates over the last few years, where everything's gone through and then they do a quick search and something pops up on Facebook. And essentially, what happens in Vegas no longer stays in Vegas. So ensure your security if you can't behave, ensure your security settings are such that your future employer or your spouse is not going to be disappointed by what they found online. I've got a 17-year-old son, so I've got to be really careful about my social media activities. But it's just basic stuff, and stuff that you might have done 10, 12 years ago can come back to haunt you. So in terms of developing a relationship, I've got candidates I worked with 12 years ago in the UK that I still talk to. And I think that this is the start of your career. You should be looking to start getting into relationships. But that said, being realistic about the amount of time a senior consultant can spend with you, because they're busy fulfilling briefs for their clients. So they can invite you to events, you can chat with them on kind of social media platforms, you can share data, but it's hard to get a deep relationship. You get that deep relationship when you've been through a process. Preparation. Anyone, any ex-military people in, or is it just me? 7 Ps. Prior preparation and planning prevents piss poor performance. With 90 seconds on your smartphone, you can make yourself look smarter than the next person by who are you going to meet? Look at the Google News. What's been in the media about them? What's the share price doing? Go onto your LinkedIn, and you should all be on LinkedIn, and say, who do I know in that organization? Who do I know who knows somebody in that organization? And literally within 20 minutes, you can just demonstrate, get some really good insights about the culture, things you've heard, or you can impress the people you're interviewing because you said, oh, brilliant press release yesterday, that's really fascinating. And it's not difficult. So you're impressing people before they even start assessing your EQ and your fit. Offer negotiation, this is where it often falls down at this level, when you're kind of coming out of business school in your early careers as executives. We're going to be really strict about what you earn and what your expectations are. We're going to ask to see pay slips. I did a pro bono piece of work recently. I shouldn't have done it because it was a very important, it's an MD for an NGO, but they haven't got much money, so they're not going to do it. And they can't pay a great deal, like 700,000 Rand for an MD role. It's not a real MD role, but it's a really important charity. So the candidate told me she earned 700,000 Rands, which foolishly, because I was doing it pro bono, I took it on faith. So when it comes to getting the offer, they want to offer a 600, subject to us seeing, I said, well, that's quite a low offer, but subject to us seeing all the relevant paperwork, we'll make that offer. And it comes in, she's actually earning about 150,000 Rands a year. And I said, well, why did you just tell me that? And she goes, well, because I feel like I should earn that much. Now, I took my eye off the ball because it was pro bono and it was an NGO, and actually the appointment fell apart. And the trust then breaks down, and pro bono stuff always comes back and bites you in the arse because you don't give it your full attention. In the corporate world, we're really strict. We want to see what you're earning and know what your expectations are. So if you're earning 1 million and you want to earn 1.4, that's what we're going to go in at. So when we get to the final stage of that process and they say, right, we're going to offer 1.45, this is the person we want, then you're feeling a bit cocky all of a sudden because you've been through rounds of interviews, you've aced the assessments, everybody likes you, you've been for lunch with the future boss. Think, well, if they want me, pay me 2. And that happens quite a lot, particularly with MBAs 1 or 2 years out. And all that does is break the trust down completely between us, between your future employer, and they'll probably say bugger off. Or if they do say it, you start with a bad taste in your mouth. The only time that's feasible is when the situation has changed. So that's so bad, and you've got to pay a little bit more money. I'm not joking. You know, these things happen. You might really want to join Clicks, but pick Clicks at 1.4 million, but Pick and Pay have come in at 2, because you've got this great skill set around what's really bad at the moment. Kind of customer insights is really bad in retail in South Africa. So if that happens, just talk about it. Don't hold it back, and then we can say, right, Pick and Pay have come in. This happens. We need to up our game. But it's all about your integrity and personal brand. So I think key takeaways from this are, recognize we don't make money by giving you career advice. Our clients pay us to find people like you for their organization. So just that will help you manage your expectation. Choose a firm that's credible, and you'll determine their credibility by looking at the people that work there. If you can't see the people that work there, I mean, why would you not be proud of your workforce? We know the answer to that. And really, Google, LinkedIn. I mean, I think there's another LinkedIn site here coming up. Very quickly, CVs, they're generally very good at Stellenbosch. I've seen the format that you use. I think it works very well. Brevity is good. Bit of clarity and relevance. You know, let's talk about organizational size, particularly if it's something that perhaps if you've worked in Brazil and your South African company may or may not know about it. Your LinkedIn profile is more important than your CV. So as soon as somebody knows they're seeing you, they're going to look. I was at a LinkedIn CEO's breakfast yesterday in Joburg. I mean, CEOs from all over Southern Africa flew in to talk about how we are better social leaders, but equally how their HR teams can use LinkedIn to find talent. So obviously the information on LinkedIn is unqualified, but actually you can make yourself look very credible. So treat it as importantly as your CV. And don't bullshit on there because it's going to be found out. And bear in mind, Instagram, Facebook, they are personal. LinkedIn is a professional platform. A few interview tips. If you're being put forward for an interview by somebody like myself, at that stage we've got a relationship, we're getting intimate, pump that individual for information. Prepare, as I've said, on-time formal dress, no novelty ties. I mean, I come to Stellenbosch regularly, but when I've never been to a client before, I always wear a suit and a tie. I know I've got these kind of English sensibilities, but it's the way I show a level of respect. Equally, it's much better to be overdressed than underdressed. You can always take the tie off. You can't take your slops off and put some shoes on, you know, if you've misjudged the situation terribly. And I think South Africans are quite relaxed from a dress sense perspective. Multinationals in South Africa sometimes take a while to adapt to that. Always better to be the smartest one in the room if required. Then you can judge it for your next meeting. Novelty ties. I've had 2 situations whereby, normally CIOs actually, IT people, big money, $150,000 roles, and the chairman of the board says, can he just put a bloody tie on? You know, we're going to offer him, but he can just wear a tie once while the rest of the board are here. And I've said to the guy, put a tie on. It's awkward, you know, it's exec to exec. He's like, no, this is me. I'm like, are you prepared to lose the opportunity for the sake of not wearing a tie for 20 minutes? Another guy insisted on wearing his lucky Star Trek tie. And one of the other board members said, you know, we all love Star Trek, but they're going to judge him. Can you just tell him to wear a plain tie? And he was offended, but he wore the plain tie. There's another lady I was coaching, and actually she had beautiful, bright red dyed hair, and it looked fantastic. However, the role she was going for, she wasn't getting success at interview. And I just said, maybe just adapt to the culture of the organization you're going for the moment of the interviews. Don't dilute who you are, but don't give them a reason not to see and hear you. Because if you're kind of saying, wow, this is me, this is me, this is me, some people will be distracted by your perceived difference, and they're not going to have an opportunity to actually hear and listen. And when I coach young South Africans, I'm saying, don't dilute who you are, just make it easy to be heard and seen. And when you're in the organization, do what you bloody want. But actually, don't give people a reason to discount you. You want them not to be distracted by what you're wearing, any nervous tics that you have, that want to listen to you, your quality, your skills, your communication skills. Formal greetings. I've come undone a lot in South Africa on how to greet somebody. In England, it's very straightforward. We have an awkward, firm handshake. We look each other in the eye, then if you look too long, you look away because it might be misinterpreted. South Africa, you know, I think that's always a good way to do it. I always start with that. South Africa, there's hugs, there's high fives. How many Afrikaans people are in the room today? Afrikaans men. What is it with the kissing on the lips? You know, it's honestly, the amount of... Well, maybe I'm going to the wrong or the right places. I don't know, but you know, it's
Older generation.
yeah. Hey, I think it's a beautiful thing. But you know, and it's but I'm saying maybe don't start there. Maybe you know your first one there, then kiss on the lips on the third meeting. I don't know, but I'm just saying, you know, yeah. No, my wife was actually with me, and I met these three big Afrikaans guys who were interior designers in Willem, and they came and kissed me on the lips. My wife, she was in Joburg. She said, "What do you do when you're in Cape Town?" Okay, I will move on very quickly. Skills that are in demand. So actually, we've all got good capability, quantitative skills. The skills that are required in the workplace going forward lend themselves to the kind of the agile theory. You can see the proverb, and you can see we're living in exponential times where essentially, you know, AI can do a lot of what we need. We need kind of leaders that, yes, they've got the hard tech background, but what else can they do? You've got to be able to adapt. You've got to be able to have EQ, cross-cultural communication, and you've got to be able to embrace the innovation that's happening. You can't be afraid of change. And I was at this breakfast yesterday, and they were actually saying LinkedIn and the World Economic Forum did a report, and the most required skills were resilience and the ability to embrace change. And they talked about developing a Swiss Army knife of skill sets. So as a leader, you're going to have to kind of have your tech hat on, but your communications hat on, your innovations hat on. It's interesting, the business models of the world are changing so quickly. Business as usual is very much put on the back burner. The leaders we bring in are brought in to oversee the transformation and the change. You can put a BAU guy, as they call it, into a division, someone that's not going to get you kind of sent to prison or go bankrupt, but you need people that can look at actually, it's not so much about the process, what people have we got. I mean, there's probably a lot of millennials in this room. Who was born who was born after 1983? I feel old. I feel old. You just did this. You just did.
I was born in 19.
Okay, fair enough. So interesting, millennials are now 56% of the workforce, and we got our first millennial CEOs. I was born in 1978. I'm a bit older, but essentially, these millennials adapt differently. You want to work differently, and our kind of corporate structures are struggling with this, but they are changing. But it's like looking at people's skill sets and not saying, "Oh, we've always done it this way. How can we extract better value out of them?" They want to be valued. They want to feel they can make a difference. Tender documentations. Let's do small experiments. Let's run fast. Before we do a 2,000-page kind of business plan, let's do a 2-week trial in a part of the business where if it fails, nobody's gonna feel it so much. And yeah, we've got a plan, but none of us know what's going to happen next week. So actually, it's about the ability to adapt to change and navigate the environment in front of you and collaborate with your customers and your team. And that's a great article from Harvard Business Review, which I recommend reading. This is a survey from The Economist. If you don't read The Economist, you should. Get it on your social media feed. It's the best example of global business writing. It's written in international English. It's clean. It's succinct. But they're saying from this survey, if you look at what the most important factors are in a leader's ability to drive a business, bottom 10% is bringing in the numbers. Now, I run a business and I look at the numbers every day, but I find, and I talk about this, and I actually do find, if you can motivate your team, if you can work across cultures, if you can adapt to change, the bottom two areas will take care of themselves. You can't pay lip service to this, but historically we've focused on these elements, which are important, but we've got to look at our kind of EQ and our ability to lead cross-culturally. We all know this. Resilience, vision, people-centered. It's no point coming in the office every morning and depressing everybody, you know. It's not like being unnecessarily optimistic, but you've got to be the chief energy officer if you're running a business, you know. People will feed off your mood. So if you can't do it, don't go in the office. Sometimes I need to listen to a bit of MWA because before I go in the office, I'm now going to be greeted with loads of problems, IT's not working, all these other various things, but you can't go in there and be gloomy. And if you're going to be gloomy, go and grab a coffee, go for a walk, then come back in. And one of the challenges of being a leader these days is there's so much pressure to be like that, you've got to find ways to energize yourself. I'm going to run through these because we're running out of time. My African-American friend will value this, I'm sure. But essentially, the difference between transactional and transformational leadership is key. Transactional leadership is management, and actually management is very valuable. The ability to look at data, dashboards, processes. Transformational leadership is making people value what they do and give that bit extra, making them feel good about what they're doing. Okay, social media. I think we've touched on this. Instagram's increasingly on there. Just LinkedIn, you have to be on there or you don't exist. And just be aware of how all of your other social media feeds can impact on your life. You can bring a lot of attention to yourself the right way by linking your LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, sharing articles, things you're interested in, the people you follow. You can create a social following, and that will bring recruiters to you and organizations to you. It will also get you working in an environment where you're going to be constantly learning. The downside is, as we all know, it becomes a bit of an echo chamber where we think the whole world thinks the way we do. So that's when Brexit happened and Donald Trump gets elected, I was staggered. But actually there's a whole world out there that I'm not connected to. Not sure I want to be, but you know, you need to know. Kind of final point on success. Organizational politics is everywhere. And I think in a let's take a JC business, it's probably 70% politics, 30% execution. An old fighter pilot friend of mine tells me the story of, he goes, Leon, I get paid a lot of money. I'm like, oh, how much, mate? You know, £250,000 a year. That's more than he got as a fighter pilot. I go, well, what do you do? He says, well, what I understand is I get told to do something by my boss. Then everyone in the organization actively prevents me from doing it. But I've still got to find a way to do it anyway, because it's quite fun. But the reality is, that's what it often feels like. And I promoted somebody to a management role once, and he's like, why is not everyone working against me? I'm like, well, welcome to my world. Welcome to my world. JFDI. I think that's an Afrikaans word in there as well. JFDI, just something, do it. You've got to find a way through it without whinging. Okay. Are leaders born or created? 90 minutes, write an essay. Absolutely. So, of course, we've all got innate leadership skills, but we can exercise that leadership muscle and encourage it. And here is a few ways that people will be looking. They work, but equally in terms of the representation of your personal brand, you can develop them. Understand yourself. I think there's a lot of self-awareness in the program here. Understand your learning style. Read. It doesn't have to be War and Peace, Dostoevsky every night, but articles through your social media feed. You just get so much by learning about what's gone wrong elsewhere. You learn a lot from other people's mistakes. Analyze other leaders. What are the leaders that have impacted on you positively? We all know someone that's done it negatively. Do I mirror any of those behaviors when I execute my leadership role? So just, you've got to be quite reflective about it. Anyone heard of Ernest Shackleton? Just look up Ernest Shackleton. Leadership in essence, brilliant. We did a lot of Shackleton when I was at Sandhurst, but actually he's used across business, not so much in this continent, but an incredible leader. And really was talking about agile processes back in 1917. Know yourself, Myers-Briggs, you all done a Myers-Briggs? Yeah. How many E's in the room? E's? How many I's? Which one do you think I am? You're right, okay, yeah. Get breadth of experience, you know, work abroad, travel. When you're out of your, I shared an article about how MBAs that have worked around the world are the best leaders because they have a developed sense of EQ. I moved to Africa 5 years ago, and I previously moved to France when I was 21. Incredibly humbling experience. You come from your comfort zone where you've got networks and you know how things work, and all of a sudden you're struggling with cultural nuances and with language. Opening a bank account is a humbling experience. It makes you a more empathetic leader, makes you a more empathetic human being. But that traveling experience is really key. One of my biggest critiques of South African leaders, they've not traveled enough. There's very much of this kind of closed lens around. I was chatting to one of my millennial graduates that joined the business recently. He was the next SRC of Rhodes University, student president, bright guy. He was telling me all about why England was one way and why South Africa was another. I said, how many times have you been to England? Oh, no, I've never been. I've actually not left South Africa. I said, okay, so I lived there for about 25 years and I've lived here for 5, so maybe my view is valid as well, but actually get out there, travel, you know, and work in different organizations. If you conquer your fears in a different environment, you can conquer them in the workplace. So if you're scared of heights, go up Lion's Head, do a parachute jump. If you're scared of public speaking, join a debate society, do a performance. I was scared of open water swimming for a variety of reasons. And it just kind of exercises those muscles of fear so that actually when you overcome that, you can then you know, when you're in a boardroom or you're in front of your team, you go, I know what this fear is. My fear muscle kicks in. I can deal with this. Take yourself out of your comfort zone and develop yourself. You'll be glad to hear the MBA is a good experience. Probably not for the reasons that you thought it might be when you started, but how to engage with different people, different groups. Late nights, can't agree on what your presentation is going to look like, arguing who's got the keyboard, who's got the marker pen, the Koki, all that good stuff, working in teams. But equally, the MBA from the top business school is a proxy to say, I'm a safe CEO. Is that what the CA qualification is? Invariably, we're doing a CEO role, must be CA or an MBA. Is that right? No. Is that the way the world is? Yes. So we navigate the world as it is, then we change it when we're in power. Could somebody with a degree in fine arts be a good CEO? Probably. But most shareholders aren't going to take that risk. MBA, tick the box. Develop USPs, unique sales points. What is different about you? And how do you do that? Go on a program like CEO for a Day. I've got a very short video that just gives you a quick overview of the program we've done. Everyone set it up.
I'm Ramesh Kamudli and I want to be a CEO for the day.
My name is Melusi Sigasa and I want to be a CEO for a day.
I'm Kushalakota and I want to be a CEO for a day.
Thank you.
My name is Naeem Ibrahim and I want to be a CEO for the day. I want to be CEO for a day.
I'd love to be a CEO for a day.
I'm here today to become one of the Hodges & Benson CEOs for a day.
Hodges Benson Sub-Saharan Africa is the brainchild of the CEO for a Day program. Have you ever thought what it would be like to be the boss for a day? What does it take? What do you have to have that others don't? And how do you stand up from the crowd and lead it? Well, you better look the part, speak the part, and have the business clout like no other to get to the top. These MBA hopefuls are in the biggest interview of their lives. They are handpicked from the finest the country has to offer, from the University of Cape Town's Graduate School of Business, the University of Stellenbosch's Business School, and the Gordon Institute of Business Science. Hodges Benson is once again driving its program CEO for a Day to get a taste of the next generation of leaders and team them up with the present captains of industry. Top-tier MBA students are chosen after a grueling online assessment, but getting in the door here means something special. They have leadership potential.
It's a concept that originated in our North American offices in Canada and the USA, then grew in our Western European offices, and we trialled it here in South Africa last year, and it was hugely successful. So this year, we've got twice as many CEOs involved, and we've got twice as many future leaders involved.
These are students who are best performing in their MBA program, so we are testing really their confidence and their suitability with various organizations and how they fit in the current economy of this world and how knowledgeable they are in their respective specialty areas.
Firstly, a written assessment for 45 minutes, then a confidential one-on-one with a senior consultant. Finally, a heated group discussion with some controversial topics. For Hodges Benson, this is something that essentially happens here every day. But what are future leaders' thoughts on what makes a good and bad leader?
I think the good leaders that I've come across that I would like to see in leaders going forward are people who are knowledgeable. They might not be the smartest person in the room. They depend on their team. They know how to get the best out of people. They have a sense of humility, which speaks to their self-awareness.
Well, a good leader to me is someone who has integrity, someone who you can trust and you know is going to do the right thing.
A good leader is someone in the corporate world where people are inspired to work for him or her. I think overall the environment is good, money handling is done the right way, and is proud to say that he or she works for that particular company.
I think an individual who is driven by a purpose other than himself will make a good leader. If you are concerned about the well-being of the broader community and instead of yourself, I think you're already a leader.
And what do those choosing these executives have to say on the matter?
Somebody who is self-aware, a confident leader, and somebody who is able to engage at all levels, and somebody who's really humble enough to be able to develop other leaders, in their environment as well.
humble individuals that observe servant leadership and understand by empowering those around them, their organizations will be more successful, South Africa as a whole will be more successful.
Apart from organizing a working day with CEOs, Odgers is building a culture of excellence, always going the extra mile in promoting good leadership and continuing to recruit the best of the best.
Okay, so that was actually done 4 years ago. We've been doing it for 5 years in South Africa. It's now gone global. It went live yesterday in terms of the applications, and there's actually more videos that you can find online with the actual CEOs that the company's going to be involved. You can see the headlines there. It's all online, a great program. Essentially, applications close at the end of next month. An initial screening call, a group assessment, some online assessment, and then a pairing day with one of South Africa's leading CEOs. They are the CEOs that we've worked with recently. I've got to say, we've got 16 CEOs so far. 14 confirmed. We've got some fantastic organizations, multinationals are going to be involved this year, and they'll be up on the website. And there's actually a lot of media coverage involved. So throughout the program, we'll be filming probably some of the assessments, but equally, once you've spent a day with the CEO, there'll be an interview with the CEO, with yourselves, and again with us. So you can see some, G4S, he's a Stellenbosch guy, and actually several of these people have gone on to be offered roles at the end of their studies. This is actually, he's an Englishman that runs G4S, and they actually became quite good friends. He became his mentor. They went on holiday together with their families, and then they offered him a job a year later in something completely different. Doesn't always work that well. Mark Bowman at SAB Miller took 3 and flew them all to different African countries on the company jet. So they flew in for the day, had dinner on the plane, and he saw the operations. It varies from day to day, but you get some really good insights. This is just an indicative example of what a day could look like. So I've kind of raced towards the end there because of timings, but essentially, hopefully giving you an overview of the brief insights of the world of executive search, what the market is looking for, but equally an opportunity to join this global competition about how to really distinguish yourself. Worst case scenario, you get to learn about going through an assessment process where you will get some detailed feedback. Best case scenario, you get to spend a day with one of South Africa's leading CEOs, and that's part of a global community that is part of Odgers. End of this year, we're actually doing 2 events, one in Joburg, one in Cape Town, for all the previous alumni of the CEO program for the last 5 years with all the CEOs. So from Clicks, Pick and Pay, Deutsche Bank, Joburg Stock Exchange, Parmalat, there's a lot of organizations involved. Are there any questions?
Got 2.
Okay.
First one I think is easiest, it's just the social media thing.
Yeah.
Keep emphasizing that. So I know a couple years back, I also heard friends of mine when they went for interviews, people want to see what you did on Facebook and all that.
Yeah.
How important is it nowadays to have Facebook or more than Facebook, Instagram and Twitter and all that for those job applications?
I think to be noticed and connected, it's important. We had the CEO of LinkedIn, not Big Jeff, but the global CEO running the business. He's a natural introvert. He said he really had to learn how to become a social leader. And it suits some people's personalities, other people have to work on it. But I would say from Facebook is personal, but as long as you keep your settings, it will remain that way. Instagram is often used for business. Businesses have Instagram sites. Twitter and LinkedIn are very professional sites. I used to have clients calling me to complain about the comments my team were making on Twitter. And tell your client, don't slag off how bad their customer service is, but it is bad. Those type of things. But I would say if we want to be visible, if we want to engage, if we have a urge to be leaders, it's another stat that I learned yesterday. Millennials are more inclined to work for a social leader. They want somebody that kind of lives and breathes the authenticity of the brand values. So I've got 2 sons. I've got a wife as well. Don't tell her. It's our anniversary on Tuesday, 18 years. But I share a lot of my going to watch rugby matches with my boys, with my wife as well. Some of them when we go out dining, but then, then there's a time where you switch off. But what that does is it shows authentically that I believe in these values. This is how I live my life, wellness, outdoors, international. I share articles and I copy people in that I think should read them, and I share their articles. it's increasingly important. It puts your brand out there, but equally, it's a great way of learning and kind of networking. But be careful. I mean, if you've got some dark stuff, don't put it up there. You know, it's.
Yeah. No, I'm not. I'm just curious because I've got Facebook and LinkedIn too, but I'm not Instagram and all this other stuff.
I'm new to Instagram last year, and I'm finding a lot of businesses. I'm getting people see something I share, and they invite me to talk about it. Yeah.
The second question I have is just related to your organization itself. So you said you're in the UK, it looks like Europe and Africa. Do you do business in America too, in the US? And if you do, whether or not you do, if you sign up for the CEO Day and you get selected or whatever, is it that you only look at companies within South Africa, or is there a possibility that you pair people from here with other countries as well?
So good question. So we do this in America and Canada. We're in 55 cities, about 29 countries around the world. But this is CEOs that I know in Africa. So my reputation on the line when I put one of you forward. So I run the assessments and I put them in. It's going to be very interesting because we'll be creating a virtual network of all the successful participants. And if you log on to the application site, you'll see the international nature of this. Going forward, that might be something we look at.
So besides you guys doing CEO for brand, what would your suggestion be? I mean, we obviously full-time students, we're halfway through. When should we when should we start looking for guys like what you do? You know, besides the CEO for a day thing, I mean, putting ourselves out there with a company that searches for talent and stuff. When would you suggest is the right time to start approaching?
To start looking for a role. So I think first, there's a lot you can do. Firstly, get the MBA done. Get the MBA done. And actually, if you can enhance that by, if it's financially possible to do an exchange or some kind of, do you consultancy project here as in dissertation? Yeah. Project. Yeah. Yeah. I had the same thing. That's a great way of engaging with potential employees as well. I'd like to interview you for my research project. CEOs, egos, lend to that, as opposed to come and talk to me about my career. Oh, I'm no official model of leadership in your business model. Can I come and talk to you about it? So there's a lot you can be doing. I'm a real geek. And when I left the army in my late 20s, I was like, what do I do next? And literally started mapping. I wanted to be James Bond on one extreme, but then I wanted to put my children through private school on the other extreme. So then you're kind of looking at everything in between and seeing what are the opportunities. And that was before I had an MBA. You should be doing the same thing. So in terms of my values, I want to do this, but actually I've got to map that with my lifestyle, and I'm sure everyone here has got great lifestyle aspirations. So actually, what is the earning potential in that, and trying to marry the two together? And then start networking in those spaces that interest you. So connecting with people on LinkedIn, your Twitter, your Instagram. And then when you've probably got 3 to 4 months to go, that's when you're probably a real prospect in the job market. Because at this level, notice periods are probably 30 days. A recruitment process will take 4 to 6 weeks. So they're not going to take 4 to 6 weeks and then wait another 4 months. So probably, when do you graduate? March. So kind of end. Yeah. And yeah, so October's like September, October is a really good time to start engaging. But it's a full-time, it can become quite a distraction as well. We have another business called Appoint Africa Future Leaders we've been running for 2 years and it's really successful now. So historically we place a CFO and he's like, get me a team. And then, well, our fees are too expensive and these salaries aren't high enough. So we've created a separate business model. And interestingly, it was on the back of the CEO for a day because we're finding a lot of the candidates like you guys, Richard Braysher at Pick and Pay says, why do I never see these people? Because actually HR don't understand what you can bring and you're not going to get into the CEO's office. So what we are doing, we've got another brand, which if you apply to the CEO for a Day program, we'll introduce you to. And we're a little bit more proactive in terms of marketing. So I'll give you 2 examples. RCL and Nestle wanting us to look at talent pipelining for them across a variety of skill sets. So find me an MBA that wants to work in a chicken factory. And I'm half joking because it's kind of, you need really good people to run factories, but many of them have come up through the ranks, but actually don't understand the sales marketing strategy. So come in, do this for 18 months and you can grow in the organization and be a broader leader. So increasingly my talent conversations are around that. And CEO for Day, we didn't set this up to find you jobs. We set it up to give you an experience and give our clients an experience and a value add. A lot of our guys are finding jobs through this program, even those that don't get selected, but they've come through our program and we go, Pick campaigning for strategy guys, MBA. Let's look at that again. So it's a great way of kind of marketing yourself as well. I'll come to you next, sorry. No, go on.
What is the employment rate for those people who work CEO for a day? And how long it takes for the CEO of the day to get a job?
So we're actually globally, we're looking at that data right now. All of my successful candidates are working. And I think 20% actually specifically got scholarship to Yale afterwards as well and did an extension. So all of our CEO Day candidates have been employed. And I'm thinking of one of the ladies from Stellenbosch, the first show I did it, she was a medical doctor. And she came to do this to really transition into the corporate world. And another one was a physiotherapist. And they've transitioned, they both they're both finalists. And they both transitioned to the business world. So everyone that comes to our program is employed. Not through the program necessarily, but I'm sure it's a value add component to their applications.
But do the people put in their CV?
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
So I was going to ask, who's your main target market? Is it people that are wanting to actually go into corporate and become consultants? Or if you were just like an entrepreneur that's wanting to get leadership exposure and to put yourself in that environment, would that also be?
Good question.
Yeah.
And just another question is, people want to work in NGOs and NPOs as well. So what we're finding is a lot of you guys, you want to be social entrepreneurs, you want to run your own business. I consider myself an entrepreneur. Absolutely. Go in and learn the lessons from corporate and then go and replicate them in your own endeavor. South Africa, we need more entrepreneurs. And that's where we're going to address the unemployment issue.
So, how many people are actually accepted? How many students are selected?
So normally 10 to 15.
And that's from all?
That's from those business schools. But this year, the appetite from our kind, I think we're probably going to get we don't necessarily want, but we've got more CEOs asking if they can be involved now, because it's gone a little bit viral, and now it's 5th year, and they realise it's low risk, and they see the media. So we don't really struggle with the quality of candidates. So what we actually struggle with is getting it down to a manageable number. So the more CEOs that we get, the more people will get through. I mean, my biggest unknown at the beginning of this was I used to lecture still the Oxford, Cambridge, Warwick, where I went. I know what the MBA caliber is, and I didn't know what the South Africa caliber was. And I've worked with 6 different business schools in South Africa now, and that's why I've got down to these 4, because it's bloody good. And it's anything slightly more vibrant and optimistic than that cohort in Europe. So, I'm very confident about the caliber. We need people to come in, trust the process. And one of the challenges is as well, is around September, August, it's a busy time in the MBA's life cycle. But that's what it's all about. I haven't got time to do the application, because I've got an essay. That's what it's all about. Yeah, it's not an intellectually demanding exercise. It's a commitment. And then the actual physical assessment that I lead, it's a lot of fun. And it's designed to be a bit different. And we get different insights there. So if you're interested, go for it.